Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a massive pain point for educators: the hidden social dynamics that can literally make or break peer assessment. We're pulling our insights directly from the incredible PeerCollab initiative. So if you've ever wondered why getting students to evaluate each other is sometimes a total triumph, and other times, well, a complete train wreck, you are in the exact right place. Let's get right into it. Okay, let's dive into this. We all know the struggle, right? You set up a peer review exercise, hand out the rubrics, and the results are just meh. The feedback is either way too polite to be useful, entirely unhelpful, or worst case scenario, it actually creates drama in the classroom. So, what's going wrong here? Is the rubric flawed? Is the assignment just too tough? Well, spoiler alert, it's not the rubric. It's actually all about the social aspects. The whole premise of our explainer today is that successful peer feedback relies almost entirely on human psychology. We're talking about those complex, often invisible social currents flowing right beneath the surface of your classroom. And honestly, if we don't get a handle on these, even the most beautifully designed assignment is going to fall flat. To wrap our heads around this, we're taking an inside-out approach today. First, we'll look at the peer assessment puzzle, then step inside the student's mind, zoom out to the dynamics between students, and finally, focus on building a supportive climate. Let's kick things off with part one, the peer assessment puzzle. To solve this pedagogical mystery, we need to look at two main pillars. On one side, we have intrapersonal factors. These are the things happening exclusively inside the individual student's head. And on the other side, we have interpersonal factors, the dynamics playing out between the students. To really master peer assessment, we've got to tackle both sides of this coin. Which brings us right into part two, inside the student's mind. Let's zoom in on those intrapersonal factors. Starting with motivation. A student's internal drive completely dictates the amount of effort they're going to put in. If they have intrinsic motivation, meaning they actually care about learning and genuinely want to help their classmate, they'll dive deep. But if it's purely extrinsic, they just want the grade, they're only going to do the bare minimum. They'll just check the box and move on. Next up is self-efficacy. And wow, this is a massive hurdle. Students absolutely need confidence in their own ability to evaluate somebody else. Think about it. If a student feels like an imposter or doubts they even understand the material, how can they possibly critique a peer with any confidence? The data is crystal clear here. Low confidence directly tanks the quality of their participation. If they don't believe in themselves, the feedback suffers big time. And we can't forget about emotions. Grading a peer carries some serious emotional weight. Things like anxiety and insecurity, they don't just make the process awkward, they actually distort a student's judgment. An anxious student might be way too harsh or overly lenient just to get the whole thing over with. On the flip side, fostering positive emotions in the room actively strengthens their commitment to the task. Rounding out the internal factors is the perception of fairness. Look, if a student feels the peer assessment process is biased or unfair, they're going to check out entirely. Why participate in a game that feels rigged, right? But when there's a strong perception of fairness, it incredibly increases how willing they are to actually accept the feedback they get. Let's move to and see how this builds into part three, dynamics between students. So now we're zooming out from the individual to look at the relationships. The first major hurdle here is social connections and trust. Existing friendships, or even existing tensions, heavily influence evaluations. And get this bias can be totally unconscious. A student might give their best friend a top score without even realizing they're playing favorites. Plus, there's trust. Students only accept feedback if they see the evaluator as competent. If they don't respect the peer's academic chops, they'll dismiss the critique in a heartbeat. This brings us to a massive concept: psychological safety. Students absolutely must feel safe from social fallout to give honest, authentic feedback. If they're terrified of ruining a friendship or catching heat in the cafeteria later, your peer reviews are going to be nothing but empty compliments. Without a psychologically safe space, the authenticity just vanishes. To combat that, you need shared standards. The PeerCollab initiative points out that clashing subjective views of what makes good work will inevitably breed misunderstandings. If I think good means being super creative and you think it means following the rules to the letter, our peer review is going to be a total disaster. Establishing crystal clear criteria is the absolute best tool you have to cut through that tension. We also have to look at the vibe of the whole room through the lens of interdependence. In a collaborative classroom, you get co-responsibility. Students feel like they're all in this together. But if your environment is highly competitive, that generates natural resistance. Think about it. Why on earth would a student give amazing, helpful feedback to a peer if they're competing against them for the top grade on a curve? They just wouldn't. All right, we've broken down the barriers. Now for part 4, building a supportive climate. So the crucial point is perfectly captured by this idea from the initiative. Peer assessment both shapes and is shaped by social factors. It's a total two-way street. The way you run your assessments will naturally change the social dynamics of your classroom, and the social dynamics of your classroom will dictate the success of your assessments. Because of that, making peer assessment actually work boils down to 3 essential keys: clear design, shared criteria, and a supportive climate. You really can't have one without the others if your goal is to genuinely strengthen teaching quality and boost student success. So what's the game plan? PeerCollab lays out 3 clear next steps. First, get your hands on their peer assessment handbook. Second, start applying their ready-to-use templates. These are specifically designed with all these psychological quirks in mind. And third, implement structured peer assessment in your own classroom. I want to leave you with a question to chew on today. Knowing what you know now about intrinsic motivation, psychological safety, and all those sneaky interpersonal biases, how will you reshape the social climate of your classroom before your next peer assessment? Think about those invisible dynamics and start building that supportive climate today. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.